Yeah, so it's kind of hard to tell. So I don't know what to make.
Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me? I can't really tell if you can.
Loud and clear.
Terrific. All right. Thank you. Hopefully, you all have been having a great Cali conference so far. I know we have. And hopefully, our session continues a great conference for you. We really, really appreciate you guys attending. And today, we're going to cover kind of a wide range of things. Largely, we're going to be focused on sort of what we're seeing in the educational landscape, some things that we're seeing specifically in legal education, some of the newer things that are part and parcel of what we're doing as ExamSoft, and we're going to introduce some folks to you that are doing some really exciting things within their schools. First, let me just start off by introducing myself and our team. I'm David Schnabel. I'm the president of ExamSoft. We have Bryant Weaver, who you guys probably all know. He's the channel manager for legal testing at ExamSoft. We have Emmanuel Pierre, who's account manager. He's been here a really long time and knows our software and the legal world really well. And then we also have Stephanie Toddy, who's here for her first Cali session ever. Stephanie is part of our marketing department. She's been involved on the legal side for quite some time. She's very passionate, sometimes scary so, about sort of what we do and improving student outcomes. So that's our team from ExamSoft. We also are going to have Ed Hart, who is the assistant dean for the law library at University of North Texas, Dallas. Talk a little bit about what he's doing at UNT. They're a new school and they're doing some really, really innovative and exciting things that are, frankly, we think and we see as being at the forefront of educational technology and assessment practice, and it's something that's much newer within the legal world. And then we also have with us Beth Donahue and Stacy Luttrell from Bar Crowd. They've been acting as advisors to UNT, and they are experts in the field of assessment. So that's the background on who we are. As I said, we're gonna talk about sort of what we're seeing at a high level within education, and then we're going to show you a little bit about our software and how that interfaces. But to start off, you probably have taken note of the title. And when I saw the title, Stephanie wrote the title, and I saw Old Dog, I kind of didn't know what she was talking about, right? I mean, I started getting some gray hair this year, so I didn't know if she meant me, or if she meant the company, or if she meant the world of higher education. And I think what it really is about is the fact that the education world is really changing very rapidly right now, as you guys probably know. Technology is changing quickly, and so are assessment expectations. And we've been changing very quickly with that. And so with that, let's jump on into the actual presentation. Okay, great. So just as a backdrop, I'm curious, how many of you are familiar with the new proposed ABA standards? Okay, so about half the room. Well, as I'm sure you know, in higher education today, there is a lot more pressure coming with respect to assessment. And this is not just within legal education, but really at the university levels as well. That pressure is coming both because of real academic and financial pressures, as well as because the federal government, is implying pressure to accrediting bodies to start to demand a lot more data from schools on student learning outcomes. That means they really want to see how students are doing. They want to see that schools are tracking outcomes and that they're using the data to actually manage their day-to-day teaching and learning activities. The ABA has a couple of proposed standards, which from what we hear are getting pretty close to approval. And a couple of those are ones that we thought we'd highlight for you guys today because we think that these could be revolutionary to what's going to be happening in legal education. The first has to do with the assessment of student learning, and it's really about summative and formative assessment. So let me just start off with a question. Who can define summative and formative assessment for me? Wait, I know they know.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, please.
She's probably going to give a better definition. Summative is assessment that tells you at the end basically what they know. Formative is assessment that you do during the course of work where you have feedback loops and can then use that assessment to change how you teach and instruct.
That was really good. That's right, and so...
He's my husband.
Oh, so it's cheating. Yeah, anybody else? No, right, that happened to have been, that was...
Come on.
So, as you can see in the first standard, basically what the ABA is saying, and this is true across all of education, is that there needs to be more student assessment. Not just summative, which is, say, for example, the final exams that come at the end of the semester, where a student finds out, I either did well or I didn't. But really more assessments during the course of the term, right? And so you see more midterms. We're seeing more midterms on our platform, but you also see quizzes, projects, papers, performance assessments. And the key is providing that feedback back to the professor, so the professor knows how their class is doing and they know how their curriculum is doing, as well as back to the students, so that they can actually improve their performance as they go. So that's a major question. That's a major change. And then the second has to do with sort of the mapping of learning outcomes, and that is actually, let me stop for a sec. Can someone define learning outcome? What's a student learning outcome? Anyone? I'll go over here again. I knew you were
What you want your students to know and be able to do at the end of your course or program or time period, whatever the increment is that you're studying.
Exactly. So it's basically the objectives for the course, right? It's what you're hoping to achieve in each course. Some people refer to this practice as being sort of curriculum mapping, where you're figuring out not just really what subjects you're trying to teach in every course, but really what are the things you want your students to be able to walk away with and being able to do once that course is complete, right? And so it's about being able to map that so you know what's being taught in every class by every professor, which is, of course, sort of that's evolving, as you guys know. But it's also knowing how that's all being assessed and being able to show that you're assessing your students against those outcomes. And you can actually generate the data, the information to show how the students are doing against what you hope they're going to learn. Right, so that's also a big deal. Now, if you can click for me. Thanks. Now, you guys all know us, I think, probably as a secure testing platform, right? It uses to lock down student-owned laptops for largely essay-based tests. And we're really, really proud of the fact that we've become a go-to platform for so many for so many law schools. And actually today we serve, I don't know if you guys know, but we serve well over 160 law schools and 43 out of the 50 state bars. So that is actually terrific. We're really excited about that. But one of the things that we see is that we're actually getting used much, much more for not just those secure final exams. And we're being used by other school types as well. And it's really for a broader array of things, including the things you see up on this chart. Right, so it's about using the exams or the quizzes, or now, we'll talk about it, projects, papers, performances, that students are being assessed on to generate the information that the school wants and needs to do things like identify students that are at risk, who are not doing well against the school's curriculum, or who are at risk at maybe ultimately not doing well in the bar exam. Figuring out what the students' strengths and weaknesses are, figuring out where the curriculum can get improved. And then lastly, as you need to generate information for accreditation ultimately, not have to generate more information, but just use this information that's already in the system. It's being generated from all the regular students' quizzes and exams and papers and so forth. So that's what we've been doing, and that's what we've been getting used for. And really, actually, these things are things that we surveyed our clients about, and a lot of people came back to us and said, this is what we're actually doing with you. And some of that surprised us. So you can go forward for me. Okay, so now we've been doing all this tracking. We've been providing the capability to gather this information with objective-based exams. So multiple choice, right, is the most common, right? So for years, you could use our software to administer multiple choice quizzes or exams to track how students are doing, and automatically score it really quickly and easily, and share that information with everyone who needs to have it. Now, many of you might know, and some of you may not, we recently introduced a rubric rating capability as well, which is all part of the exact same platform. It's just a different screen within the exact same portal. And you can use rubrics to grade essays, projects, papers, performances, mock trials, clinicals, and you can generate all the same information on the student's performance with a single dashboard. Thanks. And like we've been talking about, a lot of the pressures are coming top down, right? From accrediting bodies to university presidents to provosts to law school deans and so forth. But our take is that the best way to generate the information that's ultimately needed is to do it the other way around. Focus on the students and the professors. Give the students and professors the tools and the information that they want and need as part of their day-to-day interactions. And as a byproduct of that, allow people to push a button to run a separate report that generates the information that the dean or the assessment people might need, right, to satisfy accreditation or anything else. So the idea is to make life easier for everybody and not create new work. Okay, and so it goes back to feedback loops, right? That's sort of how it works for us. And for us, every exam, every quiz, and you guys can do this today, enables multiple feedback loops. The first is to the student, where you can decide how much or little in any given course you want to share back with that student so that they can, in the case of a formative assessment, they can see where their strengths and weaknesses are, they can change their study habits, they can meet with ASP professionals to improve their likelihood of passing the bar or improve their likelihood of doing well in school, as well as faculty. Faculty can get reports, which we'll show you in a sec, but those reports can show how their course is doing, how their exam performed, how individual questions on their exam performed, so that they can improve their exams going forward. I know faculty often have the question of, did my questions get out? Has it ever leaked out? You can actually use the data to figure it out. It shows right on the report. Are they getting all the individual topics that I want them to learn? Well, you can, instead of trying to guess or figure it out the hard way, the report basically shows you, what students, what your class has gotten as a whole or hasn't. So that's on the faculty side, and then lastly is the administrators, which could be deans, associate deans, provosts, but it could also be ASA. Okay, can you click, please? Great. And from our standpoint, whether you're simply using the software to just administer the exam, midterm, final, or if you're trying to do more of this formative work or you're trying to actually track the data, the fact is you can do it across any platform type, any major platform type, right? So for laptops, of course, it's Mac and Windows laptops, but you can also do tablets, iPad right now, we have Surface Pro coming out as well, and you can also do it on paper-based tests. So right now you can import Scantron results into our system if you're doing multiple choice, and we are going to have pretty soon a pretty exciting announcement regarding sort of paper-based exams and what you can import into our system and how easy it'll be to bring the data into our system. But the point is, the idea is all the information can come into our system for any exam, quiz, paper, or anything else. Okay, we're already advanced. All right, and at the end of the day, what you get, regardless of the device format, is you can get, if you want, reports like these. Every student can see their strengths and weaknesses and how they did relative to their class. So an ASP person can sit with them and go, hey, listen, here's where you're tracking, here's where you're doing well, here's where we might need to do some work, right? I know, how many of you guys have looked at doing sort of bar diagnostic exams? Anybody? A few, right? So something that people are starting to think about and talk about a little bit. Well, this is basically accomplishing the exact same thing, but without buying or trying to implement something new. It's using your own school's exams and quizzes to figure out how your students are doing in a much more customized way for you, based on your curriculum. We'll talk about that more in a second. So this is a student report, and then there's the faculty report, which can be either shared or not shared. But for a faculty member, they could see how did their exam perform overall, how did their course perform. For example, these could be the different outcomes measures, or it could be subjects or topics, and they can see how their students did on different topics. They see right here at-risk students, and they can see the performance of individual questions. So they can figure out, did questions get out? Were some too easy? Were some too hard? Did we cover certain areas really thoroughly in the curriculum and others maybe we should go back to and cover a little more? The point is all of that is available sort of really easily. Click. And in short, the idea is to be able to track kind of whatever you want to track, right? So if you want to track student performance against sort of internal school goals, outcomes, you can do that. If you want to track and see how they're likely to do on the bar exam, we're going to talk about a couple of examples about how schools are doing that. And that information, again, can all go to wherever the stakeholders are that you want to have it go to or not. And then ultimately, you can also use the exact same system to figure out how practice ready your students are and advertise that fact if it's really strong. Right? If that's the strength of your school, you can actually demonstrate that and advertise that as well. So one example is Vermont Law School, and I wish Ashley Klossman was here to talk about it, so I probably won't do her any great service by trying, but I'll try. So what Vermont Law School has done is they're starting to do a lot more multiple choice exams and quizzes. And they've also implemented individual performance reviews with students to go through the data that's being gathered. And what they're doing is they're tagging every question on those quizzes or exams with the NCBE objectives or standards. So that they can actually see how are my students likely to ultimately do on the bar exam, how are they tracking in their readiness for the bar exam, do they need any support tools or not? And they can provide that feedback directly to the students. And Ashley got pretty passionate about it because she also wanted to become a law school student. And in fact, I think has she started yet?
Yeah, she started.
She started, right? I asked her, so why did you do this? She goes, well, it seemed logical, and frankly, I wanted this information when I was going to be a student. So there you go. My guess is she's not alone. But anyway, the point is, rather than try and guess how the school is doing, how the class is going to do, and then get the bar results back later and go, uh-oh, it either didn't work out so well or maybe it did, they've got a predictive tool here, so they can actually see how their students are going to do. Or not how they're going to do exactly, but they can get a feel for how they're tracking. I'm going to turn it over to Ed now. As I mentioned, UNT is doing some really exciting, innovative stuff. They're actually doing pretty much everything you just talked about, or we just talked about at their school as they get their school up and off the ground. So rather than try and paraphrase, I'll just turn it over.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Is this on? It's on. He's basically covered everything I want to talk about. But at UNT, thanks to the awesome consultants that our Associate Dean Ellen Pryor had the great wisdom to hire early on in our process, we have more or less laying this out, this foundation. We are developing a curriculum that goes, we've got the first year pretty much done, but it will go beyond that into the second and third year. Using the backward design, figuring out what are the learning outcomes that we expect our students to know. And those have been mapped against the Texas bar exam, but we did look at the McCrae report and the Carnegie report, kind of make sure that any substantive big idea thing out there that Texas doesn't cover, that our students are still a bit aware of. It's a long, difficult process, and it takes a lot of thinking that your traditional faculty, I know we're not used to, but frankly, we're starting at the beginning and doing it in a very collaborative environment. So it actually has been a wonderful experience for us. It's been a great team building, particularly when we're talking about legal writing and research class, when I'm actually involved in teaching legal research, because our substitute professors are each taking a section of the legal writing. So it has been a group effort to work this all out, and it's been a fairly good bonding experience. But like I said, the really cool thing about doing it this way, this backward design, is that you're always keeping what you want the students to know at the top priority. It's not like some professors I know, they pick a book and basically they're what they're planning to teach is basically what the chapters cover. Not connecting for the students what this means after law school when you're starting to look at first yes, the bar exam, but then at the practice afterwards. But to support all this is that assessment, constant assessment. For those of us who went to law school, that huge final exam at the end of the class was a nightmare. Because you didn't have a real clue how much you actually understood it. And since so many of them were subjective because they were essays, that you understood it and could regurgitate it back to the professor how they wanted it. And this is coming from a guy who barely scraped through a C in torts. Don't tell Owen that. Because, and I got to talk to the professor afterwards, and I was totally off target what she wanted because it was a subjective essay. But writing multiple choice questions is also a hard thing. As Dave was talking about in that professor's report that you can do, you can see the actual responses on the multiple choice questions and their back platform, and you can see which ones performed well. Because you know if your students got one question 100% wrong, there's something either really wrong with that you didn't cover the test, but if you know you touched it, you know you got a bad question. But if you also know that if you got 100% yeses, correct answers, that you probably should have helped maybe toughen that question up to make it not so easy. And that is the wonderful thing about the ExamSoft. You get those kind of reports. At UNT, as part of ongoing assessment, we will be offering at least every other week a multiple choice exam or a quiz to the students. And using the ExamSoft software, we can track the results, and have an early intercession from our student success people. The students will not go into that final exam blind, not really finding out that they missed something totally off target. What is wonderful about working with the ExamSoft is, we were talking about, you can tag all these. You can set up your categories, put it into the rubrics, and we're doing this across the curriculum for every topic that goes on the Texas bar exam. And so we can, at any point, we can look at a student's record on how they've done on the assessments, the multiple choice quizzes, the final essays, the writing assignments they'll do in each class, and what they'll do in legal research writing. And we can peg to their progress on acquiring the knowledge they need to be a successful exam taker on the Texas bar exam. But, and then this is the next leap, we still haven't got there yet, we're still talking about it, is, as you were saying, you can now put this into the other skills types classes, where the faculty members can develop the learning outcomes, develop the categories, rubrics, and be able to plug that in to this, so that we'll know how practice ready there are out there. But as our two civil procedures professors are learning, writing multiple choice questions is really hard. It takes a lot of thinking. And it's thinking in a very different way. You know, you're used to be able to write a fairly simple fact pattern. You know, and you in your mind, the professor in your mind has, here's the cases, here's the statutes that the students got to touch on, and be able to regurgitate the matter, and they get the check mark and they pass. But writing the multiple choice questions and the answers, you got to think a very logical, methodical way to be a good question. And that's where Barclay has been a great success, and we love them so much.
It's just a matter of whether you want to ruin your Thanksgiving or your Christmas. Really, I mean, the multiple choice questions are hard to write, but of course they're very easy to grade.
Yeah, and that's and as the faculty members will tell you, it's hard enough grading all these essays at the end. I mean, if you got a section, 80, 90 students, that takes a long time. But switching to the multiple choice questions and switching to ExamSoft, doing it online, yes, there's a lot of heavier loading up front. But on the backside, it's instantaneous. And and then you can quickly switch over to that. The more important part is doing that interaction with students, providing them feedback and doing the intercession with the student success people if that's necessary. Of course, I'm not here to advertise for anybody, but I know Stacy and Beth have a wonderful product they're working on that would help professors build that pool of questions, which allows for interaction with the students, that the students can help draft questions. They can offer up suggestions. And for the professors, that's a really good thing because they can look at the questions that the students are suggesting to realize, oh, the students have a question about this topic that we didn't cover in class very well. Or maybe the student says, this is an easy question that everybody should know an answer to, and the professors could tweak and play with that. What's the next slide? But the wonderful thing, so not advertising for anybody, but that ExamSoft has is they do have that backside, and we're so happy that we have a curriculum design center at our main campus in Denton that introduced to us, and he showed us those reports that the faculty members can have, tagging everything up and having replies. It's a miracle, and it's so easy. Yes, the hard work is getting it all in there, but once it's in there, for most of us, it's a matter of tweaking as you go forward. But once it's in there, and you can keep doing this over and over and over again as you go through your classes. Because think about it, for most of us, most of our classes are the same year after year, with just minor tweaks as the law changes or as the bar exams adjust their categories. But the wonderful thing at this, at the end of the day, is I think the combination of switching to continuous assessment, using multiple choice questions, well-written multiple choice questions, and using the backside of the ExamSoft, the rubric side, it will help us at UNT Dallas, working through our student success program, to make sure our students are having a successful time and they are truly ready when they leave us to take a bar exam, and as much as we can make them, practice ready. But it does take a lot of collaboration up front. And it takes, for us, it's taking all the faculty. And I can understand that at some institutions, because I know we've been talking in our conversations, you've got individual professors who are buying this on board in schools. But for this to be truly effective for the benefit of you students down the road as they get ready for bar exam, I mean, it's got to be a group effort across the entire faculty. So, thank you for your time, and I'll take this back over.
Yeah, after that, and David, I don't know what to say, so I'm thinking about just cutting these slides and just stop taking questions. But no, thanks, Ed. We appreciate that, and it is kind of innovative, or very innovative, what UNT is trying to do. So I know you guys have helped them a lot, and we've seen the product. We've seen what they've actually put into the system already, and it's something that we haven't seen on that scale before. So it impressed us to the point where we wanted to make sure that that story was shared with all of you. But going beyond that, and everything they said, what we want to emphasize is the fact that not only the things David talked about with getting into feedback loops and starting to get that to students, and some of the things that UNT and the BARD crowd people are doing with kind of structuring and really taking advantage of well-structured multiple choice questions and getting that kind of automatic feedback back to students. But we wanted to make sure, we've been talking to all of you about it, I'm sure you're tired of us calling you all the time about it, but we want to make sure that you guys are just aware of the fact that not only does it help when students are, if you decide to give multiple choice questions, you get that automated feedback back to them, but you don't want that feedback loop or benefit to disappear once you get beyond those objective question types. All right, and we've seen that question come up with people that started to give more formative feedback or continual feedback, and then gave them a tool to actually continue that kind of holistic picture you're going to get across different assessment types. And we just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that it's out there. And if you start to do it, you can get a much larger, bigger picture for of each individual student performance and also across different courses. And the thing about it is that when we go to places and we actually talk to faculty, they're all doing something like this when they grade. Whether they're calling it a rubric or not, when you ask them if they're using that to grade, they won't necessarily recognize what you're talking about. But when you show them the functionality or you explain to them what the methodology might be, they all get it right away. All right, one guy told me he's printing out like a 10-page rubric in Excel for every single answer that he's graded, and he had 60 people in that course that semester. And of course, we're like, why? When you can just put it all in and just reuse that and click, okay, I'm going to the next student, and it's all recorded in there. So that's one of our major points, and we're just trying to get the word out about it, so when we call you next time, please don't hang up on us. And then also, we wanted to emphasize, just beyond the normal kind of exams that are traditionally given, we wanted to emphasize, once you get into actually using the rubric product, then you're giving yourself a lot more flexibility on what you can actually evaluate. All right, so you're not only going from objective question types into essay subjective content, but then you're going beyond that into almost any kind of evaluation that you might want to measure a particular learning outcome on. All right, and like David mentioned, you're jumping into mock trials, you're jumping into clinicals with a new emphasis on experiential learning, oral presentations, writing assignments. We have schools that give weekly writing assignments that have jumped on board with actually using the rubric product to actually keep track of that as the students go through a semester. All right, so it's not just about the traditional exam types with either objective question, multiple choice, or essay, but anything that you want to evaluate, you're going to have the opportunity to actually do that and then have a historical record just by using the rubrics product. And then this is where we probably want to finish up, and this is where it all comes back to, is getting that feedback, having that kind of comprehensive and holistic record of it, and then doing something with it, getting it to the people that it's going to benefit the most, of course, and that's going to start, like Dave was talking about, from the ground up with the actual students, and then getting that kind of information back to the faculty so that both of those kind of groups can actually adjust and both improve their performance, whether it be as an individual student going from a midterm to a final in a particular for a particular learning outcome, or whether it be as a faculty member and keeping track of how your individual exams and questions are performing and making sure that those are actually measuring what you really want them to measure. The main kind of focus to give them the ability both to improve that way is going to be getting the kind of feedback that you are pretty much or already have access to in your system back to those two groups, and then letting them take advantage of that. All right. And then going beyond all of that, we just want to give you guys some functional updates. This may be why you actually just came to this whole session, but we just wanted to let you know some of the things we've added for you guys in the past few months or a year, and for the majority of you that are using EIX to build quick and easy exams, we just want to let you know that we've added functionality to that. So now you not only have the ability to give or batch create those multiple choice questions, but you also have the ability to do things like add a calculator into the exam when you upload those EIX exams, and do things like disable copy paste if that's what you might want for the complete exam, or disable find and replace, which we added across the board in the last year for all self-test exams. All right, so we're still adding to EIX, but hopefully you guys are going to expand the usage a little bit beyond this so you can take advantage of the other benefits. And then we've always gotten questions, and I know we've interacted with a few of you for continued and expanded integration with some of your systems, and we just want you to know we're working on making that much easier, the process much easier for you guys. We actually have a whole program or department now that all they do is just integration. So if you have curiosity about it, make sure you contact your exam manager. You can always contact me, and we'll set up a process so we can get you guys fully integrated with either LDAP itself, or we also have full integration with Blackboard at this point. So it makes that ease of information flowing back and forth between your system and then everything you have in our system super simple. And then we're also, so you know, working on full integration with Canvas. So for those of you, that are actually either living Blackboard or going to Canvas or just implementing Canvas, so you know, later on this year we should have that as a part of the full implementation process. And then, like David mentioned, and a lot of you have been asking me about Surface Pro for the fall. So for those of you that have been kind of blowing up our phones about students complaining about that, hopefully we can get that settled up so you guys have that for the fall. And then things like notes and feedback, we've been getting a lot of inquiries about. I know a lot of you are in the community, and when we get posts in there or questions about it, all those posts and questions seem to generate a lot of activity. So we wanted to make sure you guys knew it was there, so students can actually enter that into the exam, and the professors, when they grade, actually get that feedback. We don't know how valuable it might be to you individually, but so you know it's there. All right. And then what we also wanted to kind of emphasize is the fact that, yes, we've gone through all this. You guys have actually seen the screenshots. You've been by the booth probably. You've seen the actual collateral. And some of you have been, kind of impressed by that. You actually are interested in getting either further information or a further look at it. I just wanted to offer everyone the opportunity that if you want to actually see it, and it's different. It's one thing to see it, and we get this all the time when we do actual demos. It's one thing to see it or have it explained to you, but it's another thing to actually see the functionality. So any of you that would want to set a session with us, just let me know, and we'll work out a time where we can do something like 20, 30 minutes. But it makes a difference for the people that, I think we have over 30 schools right now that are actively using the full suite and the rubrics. And it makes a difference for them, even after the fact that they express interest and we get it built for them, to have someone actually walk you through it or actually show you the functionality in your portal. It seems to make a huge difference with the type of usage we get after that. So if anyone would like for us to go ahead and set a session like that up for you, just let me know, and we'll be more than happy to do that.
And probably related to that, that applies to product demos, right? So if you want to actually see the software and walk through it, like Brian said, we're totally happy to do that and take as much time. Even if it's just an education session, if you tell us, even if you tell us, hey, listen, we're not looking to buy right now, we just want to understand it, we're very happy to do that. And then similarly, if you guys have sort of any needs or wants regarding sort of faculty development or education, let us know. So we talked about a couple of examples of some schools that are doing some interesting things in terms of mapping the outcomes in their curriculum and establishing category tags to tag their questions. If you want to learn more about any of that, let us know. We'd be happy to arrange sort of information sessions or webinars for you guys, and feel free to invite anybody you like. That's something that, frankly, we just like to do as kind of as good sort of members of the educational community. Because we know that that's a big trend. This stuff is important. It's going to become a bigger and bigger issue. And so we're happy to help you guys any way we can. So,
Great. That's pretty much it, guys.
Yeah,
If you got any questions, we'll be here, more than open to address anything you guys have.
yeah, on this or anything else that we didn't cover.
Any suggestion or move towards any flavor of Android support? Because I only ask because last semester, had a couple of students come through with Chromebooks. I had to look them in the eye and say, no, go find yourself a Mac or a PC. And that could become a big problem if Chromebook keep catching on.
Yeah. So yeah, we've gotten questions about that before, probably a few from you. But we've gotten such a positive reaction to the iPad and then Surface Pro coming up, compatibility. We've taken a look and we've always continually tried to take a look at what might be possible with the Android operating system. It's more complicated as far as the developers tell me because of the different flavors that we all might have to cover. Whereas the other two are pretty much straightforward. So yeah, we're looking at it. I can't give you an exact timetable right now, but I can go back and check and I can announce it, like put it in the community or something like that, so everybody has an idea of where we might be or what we might be or what might be possible.
And just so you know, I mean, basically our approach is, our development roadmap is driven by sort of what we hear from clients, right? And so the more feedback we can get, the better. But yeah, our development.
I'm not pushing for Android, but
Yeah,
it's just that, in the last couple of months, there's a lot of new Android devices hitting the market, and now they're Android desktops hitting the market, dirt cheap,
Right.
and people are buying them.
Yeah, it's definitely something we need to watch. And we're one of the things that we always do, we track sort of usage patterns and prevalence of different OSs, so that we can get a feel for sort of where we need to go next. So we're watching it. Like Brian said, for us, we're always looking at the trade-off, right? We want to make sure that anything we implement, we can support really well, and it's going to have sort of the same security and reliability. So we're being cautious, but we're looking at it.
I have to not let that go by. Chromebooks don't run on Android. They run on Chrome OS, which is a Linux, so if you're worried about supporting different Android platforms, I think you won't necessarily have that issue with Chromebooks if there's a big demand for it.
It's good to know.
Sure. Yes.
For take-home exams, what do you see about the challenge of if more and more students have ebooks and possibility of wanting to use ebooks where right now they can't with take-home exams?
You want to address it?
I can start. With take-home exam, you're talking within soft tests or without soft
Well, I
tests?
mean, right now, the model is most of the students have print, books and they take them in, or whatever, they take physical copies of materials in for a take-home exam, and not take-home, open book exam, open book exam, and they're using, it's an essay and they're using soft tests. But then if materials are digital materials, how do you balance the need to make sure that they're not going to use just whatever it is that they're required to use? But we're starting to hit a landscape where there may be more students using digital casebooks.
So I've got, so I guess a few comments on that, and I think that's a good question. So first of all, as you guys may or may not know, right, you can use our software with different settings, right? So for one thing, you can use our software in full open book mode. So in the case you described, and I realize there are probably different flavors of this case, in the case you described, you can just do that. In which case they've got full access and they can do that. You can also use our software in sort of the hybrid mode, which is open book but block internet. So they can access local, sort of locally stored materials. So that's available as well. I think when you start talking about full security, so in take-home situation, right, I would argue you're already doing a sort of hybrid, semi-secure model anyway, right? Unless you decide to use our software together with a remote proctoring solution, and even then, it's different. Well, I think we all know that's still different than testing in the classroom. But if you're talking about sort of an in-classroom, fully proctored, fully secure lockdown, we're monitoring their activity in the background sort of mode, and you want to provide access to an ebook, right? One of the things we're looking at is the e-readers out there have security vulnerabilities inherent in how they're designed, right? And so for us, we're looking at what would be the best way to actually implement something like that in that particular scenario. But in the meantime, those hybrid modes accomplish it.
I asked you this down at the desk about pricing. can you give me a big picture? And right now, this is included? Or it's
Uh,
already separate?
It's actually there. What we have to do for the people that want to access everything is we have to actually do a little bit of development to actually kind of build that onto their database. So they have all these capabilities. But what we're doing right now is we're actually, for people that want to educate themselves, at least to see what's possible, at least to see what they can do, if they let us know and they contact us and they tell me, listen, Brian, I want to actually get inside that myself because I know these questions are coming for me and I want to make sure that they're well understood. Or I have people that are actually interested, faculty that actually are using rubrics and they want an easy way to do it, or they don't want printed exams anymore, they want them electronically. Then what we do is we can work out a way to actually have this available to you for a period. So at least you have that opportunity. And then from that point, it's not one massive thing. There are different components. And then from that point, you decide what you might want to keep or what you might want or is more useful for you or most beneficial. And then at that point, we talk about the different pricing structures of the components. All right, so it's not one monolithic thing. Initially, we kind of give you access to everything, but after that, you tell us what's useful. If everything is useful, that's perfectly fine. We have schools that are actually doing that already. They want everything and the ability to track like holistically across all different assessment types. So they want everything available, but if you don't and you want a particular component, we can break out pricing.
And you can get us the listing of that pricing ahead of time.
Sure.
Sure. And probably so the good news is that while on the back end it all functions as different modules that we can turn on and turn off, for each account. In terms of the user experience, we've been working really hard to make sure that this is all one fully integrated experience and platform. So you don't have to jump around it.
This question is for Ed. How much time did you guys spend, how many man hours did you spend on creating the rubrics for civil procedure?
Quite a bit, and of course we have our help from outside.
What type of help other than,
Well, we have Bar Crowd here.
they're doing more consulting type of help, right? Not the actual content.
Yes, I mean that's Ellen Pryor, our associate dean. I think has spent entire days without sleep. When you get emails from her at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, we all kind of go, "Ellen, please be asleep." But like I say, it has been the team effort.
The full set of
Everybody's-
learning outcomes for the first year courses have been
It was-
under development since October.
Yeah, because it's as the professors have come online. Ellen started the civil procedure, her towards class, working with our visiting professor David Epstein, who's doing contracts. Because we got from those who have taught before, we got the syllabuses and using the casebook they plan to use, mapped out a very good rough outline of the learning outcomes with probably the first level or the highest level of the big ideas. Where Bar Crowd is actually helping us is getting the connection between the two. I would probably say the professors have been involved. It has taken them, those who have taught before, so know this topic area we're in, it's probably taken them a good 4 or 5 days. And it was probably a rough outline that we did have Bar Crowd help us rewrite and develop.
4 or 5 days for the entire course or just for
Each class.
each class?
Each class within the course.
Well, no, just the course,
The course itself.
all of contracts.
Okay.
But that's by a seasoned, professor with a, established syllabus, established textbook. Our 2 civil procedure professors who had never taught before, probably a little longer, but that's because they're developing everything else at the same time.
And it's a year-long.
And it's, the year-long classes. I mean, they have, of course, they still got to go back afterwards and develop, we're going to do class by class. But it's, I wouldn't say it's not that much more in reality than any professor confronts the first time they teach a new topic. And it is a great way to organize themselves to do that. Probably yes, on the backside, you get I can't really see the professor doing this. It will take somebody with instructional design experience to help work with the ExamSoft interface and to do that tagging. And We had Mark help us up front, and our registrar is getting herself up to speed to do it in the future. That's the new bit. That's the totally new bit.
I think it's easier for professors to work on the learning outcomes for their own course that they're used to teaching. They have perhaps a better sense of what they want their students to know coming out of their course. But where we've run into a lot of need for collaboration and discussion is sort of, well, what do you want the students to know at the end of the first year in what we're kind of calling program competencies. So things like legal reasoning that is taught across, you might not cover legal reasoning specifically in civil procedure. A lot of writing classes spend a lot of time on that, but you also are probably covering some of that in the substantive doctrinal courses. And so kind of weeding out where those things are being taught that we say by the end of the first year you should be able to do these things. Okay, well, if you say that, then you need to know where it's being taught and then where it's being tested, so that you have evidence that the students actually got it.
And this one thing, we haven't got there yet because we haven't started on our upper division classes. It's looking at the Texas bar exam, looking at the McCray report, looking at the Carnegie report. So we have all these topics out there, and going back and making sure that they are covered at some point. For like property law, was it covered in property the first year, or will it be covered in real estate transactions as an advanced class?
But when you find something,
and if those are different professors, that's requires some collaboration.
but when you find that something is not covered or not done, do you go back to the instructor? Is there like a
Yes.
feedback loop for the instructor?
Yeah, because like I say, for us, it's been a group effort, collaborative, so it keeps going around. And some of these drafts have gone around 2 or 3 times.
Very iterative.
Yeah, and sometimes you're creating a map to see where everything's being covered, and you can go back.
And like I said,
And then
it's,
crossing those maps of what your learning outcomes are, comparing that to bar exam content, to accreditation standards and other areas to identify things that are missing that maybe shouldn't be. Or things that, okay, everybody doesn't have to teach this, right? I mean, there's some cases where there's overlap and maybe that's good. Other places where there's maybe redundancies that aren't necessary.
Yeah, from a software standpoint, one of the things that we've also built in, because we started to hear from people who are heavy users of this, was that we don't want to have to recreate it every time, right? So there's template capability. So you create it, and then you basically just say, okay, this is set as a template, now I can copy it, another professor can use it and adapt it. So you save work later on, but I think you have follow-up.
No, I'm just trying to think through it. It's easy when you guys are starting off to get the collaboration and get it going.
But like I said, we've had 2 professors who are seasoned veterans, and their topics are our associate dean Ellen Pryor's been teaching towards 20-some years. David Epstein can teach content, I don't know how many years. And for them to get their first draft is fairly easy. And like I say, for the new people, it's been a great help for them to comprehend everything they need to include in their classes. It's getting it, and this is where I would probably suggest you need some outside help, is bringing it all together so you can get a map that crosses the whole curriculum. And I mean, I can't really expect faculty to do that by themselves. They're gonna need help from somewhere. I mean, that's one of my colleagues talks about, ALS, when you go to that first professor's workshop, it's all about research, getting published, service, everything. There's nothing actually about teaching. So this is, she's been teaching for 7 years, so this is her first time she's been told and learning these terms about curriculum development.
Okay, anything else? It's actually pretty cool we got into the sort of teaching and learning side, yeah.
I think you mentioned earlier that you could convert Scantron in.
And it's not really just Scantron publishing. We say Scantron just because a lot of people tend to
the
think.
paper.
Huh?
And scan it in somehow.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so for multiple choice today, and we're gonna pretty soon, I think, go to do more than that.
This is a new ability?
Last year,
Yeah, recently, so in last year, so.
yeah. Honestly, one of the challenges we have is, I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of editions that we make every year. Literally advertising it, you know, sharing that information, and figure out what information to share and what not to share, because we don't want to, you know, sort of bombard you. That's always sort of our challenge. So it's possible we never even told you about it. So, yeah. Okay, anything else? Yes.
I have a technical question about LDAP.
Yeah.
In regards to LDAP, is like the same tool that you're gonna put installed on a network server that syncs up with your servers, or how are you planning to get that?
We have certain server information from your authentication server, and basically you just send us something, we send like a token back, and if it's received, then we just let you in. That's a regular LDAP, and then I also forgot to mention, we're also starting to do the SAML flavor of that, so we're working with a couple of people actually, Florida and now, trying to get that set up, so going forward we'll have that, and then it's natural step to Shibboleth.
When is Shibboleth coming?
That I can't pinpoint, but since we have the language already with SAML, like I said, it should be a natural step. So we're from LDAP to SAML, it took a few months, say like 4 or 5 months.
So if we were looking for October, November?
Don't pin me down. I'll get back to you with that,
Okay.
Corey, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll get back to you with that,
Okay.
but it's next, so.
Great, oh, yes.
Is there an additional device needed when you're doing the Scantronic, when you're running the Scantrons to import into ExamSoft, I'm guessing?
So today.
How would you, how's that process?
Yeah, I mean, so you basically just do your regular scanning in. We're actually going to be sort of expanding sort of the range of formats we can take in pretty soon, so that you should be able to use just a regular sort of scanner calculator.
So what you do now is once you run the scan, trying to get the results, you just export those results, whatever it is, a spreadsheet, and then you come back where your results are in ExamSoft. Remember when you took it soft test, and right there's an import button. You import, upload it, boom, everybody's together.
Okay.
And by the way, if you're interested in like tagging or getting any analytics on any of those questions, you can also go back and retroactively put tags on those questions. Even if you never had them, you go, I wonder how my students did against these different things. You can run that. Okay, I know we're short on time, but anything, last question? No? Okay. Thank you so much,
Hey, Fred, how are you? Good to see you, man. It's been a little while, right?
I'm gonna take you guys up on the offer for local choice with Christine Funk. Digital.
evaluation complications that show that certain things, we're trying to cut X amount, and it keeps going up. And typically, this is how much this is how many typical taxes. So I just think that might be something to pull up. Using exactly.